Intro, The Visionary's Spark. Welcome to Synapse Daily. Imagine the Arizona sun in 1965. The heat is a physical weight. It presses against your skin. It burns the very air. You stand on a basalt cliff. The bloody basin stretches before you. There is nothing but dust. There is nothing but silence. The wind carries the scent of sage. The sky is a brutal blue. Most men see a wasteland here. They see a place to avoid. They see a void on a map. But one man sees a city. He does not see a grid. He does not see asphalt roads. He does not see suburbs. He sees a living, breathing organism. He sees the future of humanity. His name is Paolo Soleri. He is a prophet of stone. He is a rebel of design. He is here to kill a dream. He wants to kill the sprawl. He wants to stop the cars. He believes the car is a cage. He believes the highway is a scar. The American dream is expanding. It is moving outward, into nature. Soleri calls it a concrete cancer. He wants to fold the city. He wants to bring people close. He wants to create Arcology. The groundbreaking is about to begin. It is a war against the horizontal. It is a march toward the vertical. This is the story of Arcosanti. This is the birth of a utopia. Chapter 1, The Silence of the High Desert, 1965. The year is 1965. America is changing fast. The space race is at its peak. We are looking at the moon. But Soleri is looking at the dirt. He buys a plot of land. It is cheap and remote. It is 70 miles north of Phoenix. The location is a strategic choice. It is high desert, not low. The elevation provides a slight cool. But the sun is still king. Soleri arrives with a small team. They have very little money. They have no massive construction cranes. They have no corporate backing. They have only their hands. They have a singular, radical philosophy. The site is called Cordes Junction. It is a rugged, unforgiving terrain. The Yavapai people once lived here. Now, the architects are moving in. Soleri sets up a base camp. It feels like a military operation. But the mission is peace. The mission is survival. How can humans live without destroying? How can a city produce energy? How can we stop being consumers? The desert is the ultimate test. If it works here, it works anywhere. If they fail, the desert wins. The first shovels hit the ground. The sound echoes off the canyon walls. It is a lonely, rhythmic sound. The groundbreaking is not a party. It is a vow of poverty. It is a commitment to the earth. The journey of 1,000 miles. It begins with a single silt cast. Chapter 2, The Architect of the Future, Soleri's Genesis. Paolo Soleri was not common. He was born in Turin, Italy. Italy is a land of density. It is a land of plazas. People walk to buy bread. People talk in the squares. Soleri carried this DNA to America. He came to study architecture. He went to Taliesin West. He was a student of Wright. Frank Lloyd Wright was a giant. He was the master of organic. But Soleri saw a fundamental flaw. Wright loved the broadacre city. Wright wanted every family to have land. Soleri thought this was a disaster. He saw it would lead to sprawl. He saw it would require cars. Soleri and Wright clashed. The student challenged the master. Soleri wanted to go up, not out. He wanted miniaturization. He looked at nature for answers. Look at the human brain. It is billions of cells. They are packed into a small space. That density creates intelligence. Look at a computer chip. Complexity requires closeness. So why do we spread our cities? Why do we separate our lives? Soleri coined the term arcology. Architecture plus ecology. He moved to the Arizona desert. He started a small studio first. He called it Arcosanti. There, he experimented with the earth. He learned how to use silt. He learned how to use the sun. But Arcosanti was just a sketch. Arcosanti was the finished painting. He was a man obsessed with lean. He hated waste with a passion. He lived in a tiny room. He wore simple, handmade clothes. He was a monk of the drawing board. His sketches were miles long. He drew cities for millions. He drew cities under the ocean. He drew cities in outer space. But he started in the Arizona dirt. Chapter 3: The Silt-Casting Revolution, the Technique. How do you build without money? How do you build without steel? Soleri looked at the ground. The answer was beneath his feet. He invented silt-casting. It is a dance with the earth. First, they move the desert soil. They pile it into massive mounds. These mounds are the molds. The students work like sculptors. They use rakes and shovels. They shape the dirt into curves. They add salt to the surface. They add pigments of red and ochre. They carve intricate patterns into the silt. These patterns are the city's skin. Then, the cement trucks arrive. They pour liquid concrete over the dirt. The concrete flows into the carvings. It hugs the shape of the mound. Steel rebar is added for strength. Then, they wait for the sun. The Arizona heat cures the stone. It becomes harder than the canyon rock. Now comes the exhumation. This is the most poetic part. A bulldozer or a shovel digs. They remove the dirt from the center. The earth is taken away. What remains is a miracle. A massive, soaring apse. A half-dome of concrete. It looks like a ribcage of a giant. It looks like a cathedral of sand. The surface is textured by the dirt. It feels ancient the day it is born. These buildings are not on the land. They are of the land. The apse is a solar machine. It faces south, toward the sun. In the winter, the sun is low. It shines deep into the dome. The concrete absorbs the heat. In the summer, the sun is high. The dome creates a deep shadow. It stays 15 degrees cooler naturally. No fans. No air conditioning. Just the geometry of the universe. This was 1965 technology. It was low-tech and high-concept. It was the lean alternative. Chapter 4: The Construction Pilgrims, the Social Fabric. The word started to spread. Something strange was happening. A city was rising in the desert. It wasn't a corporate project. It wasn't a government base. It was a magnet for the youth. The late 60s were a time of fire. Vietnam was burning in the news. The cities were full of riots. The youth wanted a new world. They heard about the Italian in Arizona. They heard about the urban lab. They arrived by the hundreds. Then by the thousands. They were called workshoppers. They paid to be there. They paid to work in 100-degree heat. They lived in simple plywood cubes. They slept under the bright stars. They woke up at 5 a.m. The work was brutal and heavy. They hauled buckets of wet cement. They tied rebar with bleeding hands. But they were happy. They were building a future. They ate together in a common hall. They shared ideas about philosophy. They debated the omega point. Soleri was always among them. He was a quiet, intense figure. He worked harder than anyone. He didn't give long speeches. He gave examples through labor. The site became a melting pot. Artists, engineers, and dropouts. They were construction pilgrims. They believed in the urban effect. They believed that proximity creates love. They believed that walls create war. At night, they played music. The sound of guitars filled the canyon. The bells of Soleri rang in the wind. They were part of a grand experiment. They weren't just building rooms. They were building a new human soul. Every wall had a story. Every floor had a thumbprint. It was the most human city on earth. Because it was built by hand and heart. Chapter 5, The Philosophy of the Lean Alternative, The Death of Excess. Soleri had a radical enemy. That enemy was the big. We live in a world of big. Big houses. Big cars. Big waste. Soleri proposed the lean alternative. He believed beauty comes from less. Not less quality, but less stuff. In Arcosanti, every square inch matters. He hated the idea of empty space. To him, empty space was dead space. He wanted a city that was dense. Imagine a city like a diamond. A diamond is carbon pressed tight. That pressure creates something brilliant. Humanity, he argued, needs that pressure. He wanted to shrink the physical footprint. If the city is small, nature is close. You walk out of your door. In 2 minutes, you are in the canyon. You are in the wild desert. In a normal city, you drive for an hour. You see only gray asphalt and signs. Soleri's lean alternative was a spiritual choice. He believed that wealth is a burden. He believed that objects own us. At Arcosanti, you don't need a garage. You don't need a private backyard. The entire city is your backyard. The plaza is your living room. The theater is your entertainment center. This is shared abundance. It is the opposite of private poverty. He saw the future clearly in 1965. He saw the climate changing. He saw the resources running out. He warned us that we are too fat. We are a civilization of bloat. Arcosanti was the diet. It was the lean, muscular future. It was architecture as a survival strategy. Chapter 6, The Bronze Bells of Soleri, The Sound of Funding. How do you pay for a dream? Arcosanti had no government grants. It had no billionaire investors. It had no bank loans. It was funded by the wind. More specifically, by the sound of the wind. Soleri was an artist as well as an architect. He began designing bells. These were not ordinary bells. They were cast in the desert silt. They were made of bronze and ceramic. Each bell was unique. Each bell carried a different vibration. The Soleri bell became a symbol. People bought them for their gardens. They bought them for their homes. This money went back into the concrete. The foundry became the city's engine. You can still visit it today. You see the molten metal glowing. You see the fire in the desert night. It is a primitive, powerful process. The workers pour the glowing bronze. The sparks fly into the dark sky. It feels like an ancient ritual. The city was literally ringing into existence. Every time a bell chimed, a wall grew. It is perhaps the only city in history. A city built entirely on the sale of art. It proves that culture can build structures. It proves that beauty is a currency. Even today, the bells are the lifeblood. They are the physical export of the Utopia. They carry the desert's voice to the world. Chapter 7, The Slow Shadow of Reality, The Stagnation. The 1970s were full of hope. The 1980s brought a cold wind. The world's attention began to fade. The energy crisis was forgotten. People wanted big hair and big malls. They didn't want lean alternatives. They wanted the suburbs again. The construction at Arcosanti slowed down. Building a megastructure is hard. It is a slow, agonizing process. The money from the bells wasn't enough. The volunteers became harder to find. Critics started to arrive with pens out. They called it a concrete ghost. They called Soleri a dreamer with no map. The plan for 5,000 residents stalled. The population stayed around 100. The massive main structure was never built. What we see today is only the base. It is only 5% of the original dream. It is like looking at the foot of a giant. The rest of the giant is missing. Is it a failure if it's not finished? Is a poem a failure if it's short? Soleri didn't think so. He called it a continuous process. He believed the doing was the point. The building was the laboratory. But the shadow of reality was long. The desert is a patient hunter. It waits for things to stop moving. It waits to turn concrete back into dust. Chapter 8, The Laboratory That Never Closed, The Modern Legacy. Paolo Soleri passed away in 2013. He was 93 years old. He spent his final days in the desert. He never saw his city of 5,000. He saw a small, beautiful fragment. But something strange happened. As the 21st century arrived, the world woke up. We started talking about sustainability. We started talking about urban density. We started talking about carbon footprints. Suddenly, Soleri didn't look crazy. He looked like a genius. Architects from China and Europe came. They looked at his silt-cast domes. They looked at his solar orientations. They realized he had solved the math in 1965. Today, Arcosanti is a pilgrimage site. It is not a finished city. It is a time capsule of the future. It hosts festivals and workshops. It teaches people how to use their hands. It shows us that we can build differently. It is a living museum of arcology. The students are still there. The bells are still ringing. The dream did not die with Soleri. It evolved into a global conversation. He planted a seed in the driest ground. And somehow, it is still green. Chapter 9, The Ghost of the Future, The Final Reflection. Walk through the vaults at dusk. The concrete is golden in the setting sun. The shadows are long and sharp. You feel the urban effect he promised. You see people talking on the terraces. You hear no cars. Only the wind. It feels like a ruin from the future. As if a more advanced civilization lived here. And then they left us this message. The message is, change is possible. We don't have to live in the sprawl. We don't have to be slaves to the car. Arcosanti is a ghost of a future we missed. But it is also a map for the one we need. It is a testament to human willpower. One man. A few thousand students. A lot of desert dirt. They built something that will last centuries. It is a monument to the bold dream. In a world of boring boxes, it is a curve. In a world of noise, it is a chime. Conclusion, the legacy of silt and sun. Arcosanti is a question. It is not an answer. It asks, who are we as a species? It asks, can we be part of nature again? Paolo Soleri didn't build a city. He built a mirror. When we look at Arcosanti, we see our fears. We see our wasted potential. But we also see hope. The groundbreaking in 1965 was just the start. The work continues in your mind. The work continues every time you think lean. Thank you for joining us at Synapse Daily. We hope you felt the desert heat. We hope you heard the bells. Like this video if you learned something new. Comment your thoughts below and subscribe for more fascinating stories.